As always. So, so much for my think tank to dive into now. Where should I begin? I'm joined by CNN political analyst and New York Times correspondent Alex Burns, Washington Post correspondent Philip Bump, and politics editor of TheRoot.com, Jason Johnson. Jason, I'm going to begin with you. What we just sort of dovetailed off of with Jason Carroll's reporting, and that was this minority outreach, the David Duke ugliness, the Trump campaign disavowed that right away. But Anderson Cooper had Spike Lee on his show last night and said, so how's that whole minority outreach thing going, do you suppose? And this was how the response came off. Take a look.
Donald Trump says he's reaching out to African Americans. He says, what the hell have you got to lose? He says, when you hear that as a black man in America, what do you think?
I laugh.
So, Jason, he laughs with a dead serious face. How many people within the African-American community do you think that Spike Lee is speaking for?
He's probably speaking for a lot of people, according to the polls, Ashley, because every poll has shown that not only is Donald Trump only at 0, maybe 1% with African-American voters, but none of his efforts to reach out have improved anything. And I always say this is a very key point. This is a Trump problem. This is deeper than the Republican Party because John Kasich, Chris Christie, Marco Rubio, George W. Bush, there are plenty of Republicans who can get African-American Republicans out to vote for them. Trump has turned off black Republicans. So his outreach is having the absolute opposite effect, and it's going to hurt down-ballot Republicans. I think everybody is terrified right now at getting dragged down in this nonsense with him and his poorly run campaign.
And just when you think that's going to be the headline of the day, out comes the FBI. So, Alex, I'm going to get you to jump in on here if you can with the news that we have more FBI email information to digest tomorrow, which is the drip, 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 drip that obviously the Clinton campaign does not want. No one's really gotten to any smoking guns, right? But does that matter?
Look, I think in terms of the trust issues and the honesty issues that Hillary Clinton obviously has with a lot of voters, people have reached those conclusions without the presence of a smoking gun. The challenge, I think, for the Clinton campaign is moving out of this really quiet and slow August for her campaign when she has been mostly behind closed doors, down day after day, holding private fundraisers and not necessarily driving an aggressive public message, which just allows all this information about emails, about the Clinton Foundation, about foreign donations to just flood into the vacuum. I think coming out of Labor Day, you're going to see a lot of Democrats hoping, and I think you're going to see the Clinton campaign delivering a much more intensive schedule, a much more aggressive, louder message, a positive message about her in addition to the contrast she's been drawing with Trump.
Since you mentioned those private fundraisers, sometimes you get an iPhone going during those private fundraisers, and for Hillary Clinton, I think it might have been last night's in New York, she was overheard during one of the fundraisers talking about the upcoming debates and Donald Trump. Have a listen to what she said.
And I'm running against someone who will say or do anything and know what that might be. I do not know
which Donald Trump will show up. And the truth is, Philip Bump, I don't even know that his own closest aides know, because he has said, I don't need the mock debates, according to reports. It's an unusual debate prep mechanism that he's employing at this point. And now the co-writer of The Art of the Deal, which is his famous book, is actually working for the Clinton camp. I just figured he'd have a non-disclosure agreement. He wouldn't be able to do much. But that's a lot to sort of chew on for a moment. What do you expect they're trying to do in the Clinton camp to cope with what they have no clue is coming?
Right. Well, I think the first thing they're trying to do is set expectations. They want to make sure. I think one of the things that we want to look back to is the debate in 2000 between Al Gore and George W. Bush. Al Gore went into that. He was presumed to be able to mop the floor with George W. Bush. George W. Bush came off as very accessible, and Gore was kind of harumphing his way through it, and it didn't do Gore any good. I think the Clinton camp is trying to do their best to set expectations that this is a...
I heard that. And then I heard interviews this morning with some of her surrogates saying, he's going to be hopeless. He's not going to be able to handle the issues like shit. That's not setting low expectations. Or that guy didn't get the memo.
Sure. It's very possible that guy didn't get the memo. I mean, it's standard. It's standard that you want to, puff up your opponent. But I think the question is very real. How is Donald Trump going to perform in this debate? What's he going to do? How's he going to come after Hillary Clinton? We've all seen what he did in the Republican debate, where there were a lot of people that were on the stage and could absorb a lot of the attention. This is one-on-one, and I think the Clinton team thinks they have an advantage when it gets down to policy, because they can really hammer him in a way that the Republicans weren't able to. question is how he responds.
Jason Johnson, I want you to do a quick response for me to some new polling that's just come out. It's the new Monmouth poll with registered voters. Clinton's come in 7 points ahead of Donald Trump at 43% to Donald Trump's 36%. We've been seeing some polls like this before, but I think the one that screams the loudest headline is the combined unfavorability of these candidates, which, by the way, is 2%. Favorable is 2%. When you put them both together, I'm not sure exactly how they framed the question, but basically, what do you think of these guys? 2% together said, I don't.
I always said this is like Game of Thrones if you had to choose between like Joffrey and Ramsay. Like, these are two horrible leaders that no one seems particularly enthusiastic about. I think this is a problem for both candidates. I think you got a lot of Republicans who are like, I'm never Trump, but I got to vote. And you've got a lot of Democrats who are like, I guess I'm going to have to hold my nose for Hillary Clinton. These debates are going to be very, very key because whichever candidate finds himself to be somewhat less unsufferable to the American people is going to have a huge advantage in what was going to be, I still think, a very close and very tight election in the popular vote come November.
Yeah, it's hard to say that whole 2% business because I think that's the Chrissy Cross of both, both of those unfavorabilities coming together, because there's plenty of people who think these candidates are fantastic. There
Right.
certainly are. It's going to be fun to do, isn't it, all the way to the next 70 days. Alex Burns, Philip Bump, and Jason Johnson, thank you.
Thank you.
All three of you. Appreciate it.